Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Should we do something completely different now? I wanted to do lobsters. I wanted to do the live lobsters. Amazon coming under attack for delivering live lobsters. But it's very similar to a lot of other conversations that we've had recently, and I feel duty-bound to draw your attention to something that's altogether more important. There are two stories here. There's the weird Daily Mail coverage of prostate cancer. Only that newspaper could have turned news about the research and investment that's gone into breast cancer over the years being successful into a kind of suggestion of an anti-male bias, because prostate cancer hasn't received anything like the support and investment that breast cancer has received. I've checked the Daily Mail annals for all of their massive campaigns calling for more money to be put into prostate cancer, but I haven't been able to find any. So only after the successful breast cancer research has filtered through to reality and seen a downturn in deaths, moving below prostate cancer, suddenly the Daily Mail see it as an anti-male bias. You just, some days, honestly. But the fact remains that men are often too embarrassed to go to the doctors. It's something that's seen as a male problem, a male issue. And I don't know why, and I don't know whether it will hold water, but I couldn't help seeing this other story in a similar light, albeit that it's a very, very different tale. There was a story not long ago that I don't think we covered on the programme. I think I might have been away when it happened, or I might just have missed it, because these stories don't really light up the media in the way that perhaps they should. A courier who's working for a parcel delivery company called DPD went to a medical appointment to treat his diabetes and was fined for attending it. It's £150 worth of daily penalties if he didn't find cover for his deliveries, okay? And he's now died of diabetes. I sometimes read these stories and wonder when we're all going to wake up and start finding fault with the people responsible for our problems, rather than constantly getting furious with the people who aren't responsible. Just let me read you this paragraph, because this to me is 19th century. Not 21st. A courier for the parcel giant DPD, who was fined for attending a medical appointment to treat his diabetes, collapsed and died of the disease, it has emerged. Don Lane, 53, it's no age. From Christchurch in Dorset, missed appointments with specialists because he felt under pressure to cover his round and faced DPD's £150 daily penalties if he did not find cover, his widow has told The Guardian. So the way it works, and do you know there'll be people sitting in traffic right now behind the wheel, working for this company or working for similar companies, who don't know how little we know about what they do. Because it's your daily experience and your daily existence, you presume we all know about stuff like this, but we don't. When we open our front door and you deliver us our new books or our shopping or whatever it may be, DPD, this company, delivers for Marks & Spencer's, Amazon and John Lewis. We've had deliveries from all three of those in the run-up to Christmas. And the idea that you only pay per parcel, you get treated as a self-employed franchisee, so you receive no sick pay or holiday pay, and you have to pay £150 if you can't cover your round. This chap, Don Lane, had collapsed twice. Oh, guys, what are we doing? Seriously. What are we doing? Once he collapsed into a diabetic coma while at the wheel of his van. They fined him in July after he went to see a specialist about eye damage caused by his diabetes. They fined him £150. He collapsed again in September and finally in late December, having worked through illness during the Christmas rush. He died at the Royal Bournemouth Hospital on the 4th of January. He'd worked for DPD for 19 years. How commonplace is this? 0345 6060 973. I can't believe my eyes sometimes, and this is a programme where we try to shine a light on this sort of thing. I should read out whatever the company have said in order to provide them with a sort of fair hearing. Is DPD area manager? No, that's not it. Yeah, this is exactly as it. In relation to Don's poor health at the end of December 2016 and January, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about the July one. So the widow's accusation is that he texted his manager and said he knows he has to come into work tomorrow or he'll get charged. And the manager responded that he has no worries about being charged. This is the statement from DPD. They're profoundly sorry that it had charged him, but cited confusion at the time. Don attended his appointment, but it isn't clear why he was then charged when the charge hadn't been applied at any other time. We got it wrong on that occasion. Oh dear. So they issued a defence of sorts. His widow describes a scenario that very simply says, and do you know, Wayne in Basildon described this to me ages ago. And it was quite strange, really, because it was a sort of mutual friend who was doing this for a living, but we fell out. He went a bit Brexit and a bit bonkers on the immigration stuff, and yet his working experience was exactly what we're describing now. This notion that when you're being absolutely shafted by your notional employer, who's not your employer by any stretch of the normal use of the word, you are the people who are most susceptible to the anti-immigration rhetoric. Because somewhere inside you'd think if it wasn't for all the immigrants, they'd have to pay me more. But it doesn't work like that. The only circumstances in which they're going to pay you more is if they're forced to. I can't believe I live in a country where you get fined 150 quid if you have to go to the doctors. I get the no sick pay and holiday pay because I've got that. This entire working scenario was set up to benefit people like me, people with more than one employer, people who get paid over the odds, and as a result of that are expected to kind of accommodate their own holiday pay or sickness pay or redundancy pay or pension contributions, you know, all of the things that if you were on PAYE, your employer would be duty-bound to provide you with. If you are self-employed or if you're a limited company, you do it all yourself and you pay a lower rate of tax on some of the income as a result because you're not getting... but it wasn't designed for people driving courier vans, was it? I just want to know if you're doing this. How bad is it, really, if you're sick and you've got this kind of contract, a self-employed franchisee? And if Don was there for nearly 20 years, it wouldn't have been like that when he started, would it? Does this mean all the people that come to my front door to drop off Mrs. O'Brien's latest deliveries are all running the risk of a big fine if they phone in sick the next day? And yet you might know a couple of people who can cover for you, but imagine if I had to provide my own holiday cover here instead of it being a risk, because a responsibility of the radio station. It's almost as if the further up the ladder you are now, the more protections you get. The opposite of what politics and society should really be doing, which is providing the lower down the ladder you are with the most protections. You need protecting from the people at the top. I don't. Oh, this breaks my heart, this story. I'm sorry for not really providing you with a very sophisticated analysis of it. I just want to weep. I don't often allow emotion to cloud my judgment, but this story's really torn me. Lane disputed the £150 charge in July, insisting that he had told his bosses about the appointment months earlier. According to correspondence seen by The Guardian, he told his manager, "I have cancelled so many appointments because I couldn't make the time to get there that the renal department have stopped treating me. I had to go." His DPD area manager replied, "I fail to understand why a full day off was required, and as such do not see that the breach, the £150 fine, should be rescinded." And it was during that appointment that doctors found his blood pressure and cholesterol were high. He had anemia, rising levels of creatine in his kidneys, a warning of renal failure. And then in September of last year, he collapsed into another diabetic coma. In the days before he died, he was feeling sick and vomiting blood. His widow explained, adding that he told her, "I really don't want to work, but I have to. I really don't want to work, but I have to, because if he didn't, it's a £150 fine." Is it really this bad? 0345 606 0973. Please, God, this is some sort of freakish anomaly rather than the new normal. Please, God. George is in Manchester. George, what do you think?
How you doing, mate? Basically, it's happening in every single DHL, UK Mail, DPD, APC, all doing the same thing.
Offer up an alternative analysis. Neither do I have any reason to doubt you, but just talk to me about, we don't need to give chapter and verse on names and employers anymore, but talk to me about your life. Talk to me about your working life and whether or not it stands comparison with poor old Don Lane.
Well, you're doing maybe 10, 11 hours a day with no break. You need to work through a break just so you can earn decent enough money to try and have some sort of life.
And if you're sick, what if you need to go to the doctors at short notice?
If I need to go to the doctors, I can't do it short notice because you've got to be CRB checked to work in this job.
Yeah.
So any extra workers that are in the depot are already CRB checked, and usually they're always taken up by the company. So if I needed to get cover, I can't get outside cover unless they've been CRB checked. And if the company that I'm subcontracted into is using all these spare drivers that they've got, then I'm being forced to work while I'm ill.
But what happens if you don't? If you just say, I can't, I'm not coming in, what happens? What's the penalty?
Usually they'll put 2 drivers on it, charge 150 quid a driver plus VAT.
Say that again.
They'll put 2 drivers onto my run.
Yeah.
Charge you £150 per driver.
Charge you?
Yeah, charge me, plus VAT, because I've not been able to get my own cover. And then your run might make, I don't know, 180 quid. So you'll get back whatever they've delivered for you, but then you've got to pay the overpayment then, including VAT, to that company. So for one day, I mean, I know one lad there, he's had 1 day off and been billed 400 quid.
But this doesn't, I mean, forgive me, George, you're clearly telling it straight. And
this has been going on for years.
I know it has, and I've had indications of it before, but I just can't quite believe the scale of it. So, what if you broke your ankle now?
You might as well quit.
But what would happen? You broke your ankle now, and you phone them up and say, I've just broken my ankle, I'm not going to be able to work for the rest of this week. They're not going to fine you for every one of those days, are they?
Yeah.
But what are you currently... And how does that contract work? What have you committed to do over the course of February? Have you told them you'll be available to work Monday to Friday?
Oh, yeah, basically, you come in every morning, you've got a pile of parcels there for the postcode.
No, I get that, but what have you committed to? Because you haven't committed to working Saturdays and Sundays as well.
Well, you've got to work a Saturday, but usually because you've only got to deliver Saturday parcels, which you might only have 4 or 5 on a Saturday,
right?
Just so you can get a Saturday off, you'll share it with another driver, and then you'll do his work and your work over the weekend, and then the following weekend he'll do it doing your job and his job.
So you have...
Just so you can get a Saturday off, but it won't be long until they're making us work Sundays.
Because there is nothing you can do to object. There, you have literally, forgive me...
The contracts are set up in such a way that I've never seen anything so one-sided in my life. We're liable for everything. For passing, even though we pay goods in transit insurance to them, we've got no certificate to say that we've got it, and if something goes missing or something gets lost, we've got to pay for that parcel. They don't even do it through the insurance.
Because that would affect their premiums.
Yeah, exactly.
You've got no rights at all, George.
December up to Christmas, and they took 471 quid off me. For apparently not leaving safe place parcels and doing the correct procedure for it. 471 quid out of 1 month's wage.
What? Can I ask you a question? You promise not to get cross with me?
Yeah, go on.
You hear someone like me on the wireless expressing, shock and wonder at what is your daily reality. Do I sound like a complete wazzock to you?
No, because you're not to know, are you? You're not to know.
But, mate, I get the stuff to my door. I know a couple of the local delivery drivers by name. They listen to the show, and yet I had no idea that these were the circumstances in which they were working. If you broke your ankle tonight, you would be facing economic oblivion.
Yeah, I'd have to, if anything, I'd have to get it casted up, jump in my van and get somebody else to drive and do all the running about, and I'd just have to pay them like 90, 100 quid for the day.
And obviously, you wouldn't be doing it if you felt you could make a cross doing anything else at the moment.
Yeah, but it's not only that. You're tied into your van. A lot of the drivers have took a van out over a 4-year contract.
On HP?
Yeah. So, like with me, I've still got 2 years on mine now. I'm itching to leave.
Of course you are, but you can't because you've got to keep up the payments on your. You've got to keep up payments on your van.
Yeah, but not only that, I can't find another job that pays what I need to earn to pay the van off and all my insurances and stuff. It's honestly, I've been screaming this from the rooftops for over a year. I even emailed yourself through your website last week.
Oh, did you?
I've emailed the papers, the Guardian, the Sun, the Telegraph.
The Sun won't care, mate. The Sun have got a story on their front page about swans dying of flu. You can ring their snowflake hotline.
There was one story in the Sun the other day, and that was saying about, I think it was UK Mail, DHL or something, and that was saying about pretty much the same thing. What they did is they forced people or something to sign a new contract, and if they didn't sign it by the end of the day,
again, I'm uncomfortable with you mentioning these firms without us being 110% sure that they are the relevant. No, mate, I'm not having a pop at you. I'm just covering myself. I think.
I won't even lie to you, mate. I know people who work for UK Mail.
No, just stop it. All right, but fine, I hear you, and I'm not disputing it. But there are certain rules that we have to live under. What does light at the end of the tunnel look like then? You pay your van off in 2 years and find something else to do.
Yeah, that's it. Because my van's like my asset. So
of course
as soon as I pay this off, I'll sell it off, then buy myself a little car and just go back into normal work.
What's normal work? Like what? What were you doing before?
I was doing like leaded windows and stuff like that.
Why did you stop? What was the appeal of this? What did you get wrong, if you allow me to suggest?
It's just the openness and being on the road and pretty much being free for the day and you don't. I say you don't have to answer to anyone. You do all the time, but you're not self-employed. You're only self-employed on paper. Any other aspects of the job, you're not self-employed. I mean, we get 100% of our work from one person. How's that self-employed?
And then if you can't do it tomorrow, they charge you. I can't believe. I'm so sorry, George. All of these flipping issues. What were we talking about last week? Was it the grid girls at Formula One? That was the biggest story in town. People getting upset about that. No one talking for him, and I can't do it every day. He's a commercial organiser. It's unbelievable. And then just to remind you of what the hard Brexit supporters think, they think that workers currently have too many protections. They think there are currently too many regulations in place. They think that we need to have a bonfire of the kind of regulations that have already allowed a system to exist in which a man has died of a disease that he attended a medical appointment to have treated and got fined £150 by the company that is somehow not his employer. Darren's in Basildon. Darren, what do you think?
Yeah, I can understand where, obviously, where everyone's coming from in regards to this DPD driver. Obviously, what happened was, disgusting, I'd say. I work for a firm who deal with telecoms, and the way that everything is going at the moment with bad weather, it obviously affects how much work we have and everything else. I've had a doctor's appointment I needed to attend a couple of weeks ago. I asked manager, is it possible that I could get some work in the area of my doctor's surgery? I'll have lunch, which is unpaid. I'll go to the doctor's appointment, potentially miss out on having my own lunch anyway, but I'll pick that up obviously throughout the day and sort of carry on with the work. And unfortunately, depending on where you work, who your manager is.
Which manager is, because this is Jobsworth territory, isn't it? This is people, power trips, there's always one.
Yeah, exactly. And
they've got the right to do it. This is indentured servitude. And these are companies often turning large profits, but seeking to find ways in which to pass on any losses at all to the workforce.
Huge profits. I mean, astronomical.
And yet,
but, you try and do the right thing by the company, and like I say, depending on who your manager is and the work and the area, etc., that all then affects how your day at work is. If I worked in a different area, a different manager, they might be a bit more switched on. I think, no, you know what? You go to your doctor's appointment, we'll sort it out later on, whatever. And you just run with it. But unfortunately, you know, you try and do the right thing. Can I have some work in that area so I can go to the appointment at my lunchtime?
Yeah.
Oh, well, no, because you've got this, you've got that, you've got the other. It's like, right then,
I wonder what the numbers are. I wonder what the overall numbers are, because this is why we keep getting told by the government that unemployment is at a record low, because of people like George and Darren and the late Don Lane. That's why. And the more they take away, you think I'm going mad when I tell you what hard Brexit is about. Here's the proof. How could anybody look at this working environment and think that these men and women have too much protection, too many regulations in place to protect them? The one thing on which almost everybody agrees about European Union legislation was that they were very strong on workers' rights. So you have, all of us have, spent 30 years being groomed into believing that trade unions are awful, that they're the enemy of Britain. 30 years being groomed by Rupert Murdoch into believing that trade unions are awful. And this is what we all reap. And it's almost reassuring to know that you still have the capacity to be shocked, isn't it? I was aware. We have covered, you're quite right, to remind me. Suggest that I shouldn't beat myself up quite this much. We have covered these issues before, but I don't think we've ever done it from the perspective of reporting a death. The courier for the parcel giant DPD, which we've all seen on our streets, possibly, you know, bringing parcels to our own front door, was fined for attending a medical appointment to treat his diabetes, and subsequently collapsed and died of the disease. I think the most poignant element of this tragedy is probably the bit where he said that they told me they were going to stop treating me if I didn't make this appointment because I'd cancelled so many. And yet we are embarked upon a political course at the moment, contingent upon the belief that workers have too many protections, that there are too many regulations in place. Johnny's in Orpington. Johnny, what on earth is going on?
Great show, by the way.
Thank you, Johnny. James, you can call me. Yeah.
James,
carry on, Johnny.
It's the contract we signed from the beginning, which is to provide a service. And obviously, if we can't provide a service, they find us. So, as you said, you shouldn't be shocked or surprised because it's been going on for long with other companies, which there were court cases. So basically, it's all the self-employed aspect of things.
And you have no choice. You have no collective bargaining power, or you take it or leave it. It's their way or the highway.
Yeah, that's correct.
So you want the work, you need the money, you want the work, you do it exactly how they say it, or you don't do it at all.
I was with them for 3 years. I had my own van, contract hire. I was paying 400 quid a month. Plus, with all my insurance was another £350. They expect you to do 100 parcels a day at a rate of £1.70, which is £170 a day, which is good money. But once you take your expenses out and everything out, it's basically a minimum wage job.
For which you have to pay when you can't do it?
Which you have to pay. Well, that's in the contract. You can't provide you're there to provide a service. So, yes, they've got you by the...
Short and curlies, you can say that on my show.
Yeah, so...
Where does it end then?
I'm glad...
Go on.
I'm glad that it's been put to light with yourselves and the papers, but,
well,
you know...
keep us in the loop, but this fella had to die before it got the attention it deserved. It's I don't know what I'm looking for. I can't see any resolution, Johnny. I can't see if we did X, Y and Z, then we could stop it from happening. There just is... the GMB union are apparently doing very good work in this field, and we know that some other companies have had to cut their cloth accordingly, but only after coming under enormous pressure. And yet, I know that in the next 3 or 4 days, one of these fellas is going to turn up on my doorstep. Am I complicit in it? I don't know anymore. Is it? Did you have to...
There's no one representing us either in the self-employment sector. So if we've got anyone we ain't got a union, we ain't got no one to phone up. Yeah,
well, you need to look into that. I think the GMB can. You can have you don't have to be an employee to benefit from trade union membership. But this is about the blurring of the line between employer and employee, isn't it? Between employee and self-employed. You're not self-employed in any meaningful use of the term.
Yes, that's right.
But it suits them. So this is almost as if they've sat down and said, how can we render our workers utterly powerless while also insulating ourselves against the symptoms of that powerlessness. Imagine if you were signing off sick because you had depression as a result of living in the jaws of this dilemma. You'd have to pay for the privilege of having depression because you signed this contract saying that you will provide a service even if you've broken your ankle or a bit of your mind has temporarily snapped. Wayne's been in touch, actually. Obviously missed my introduction when I explained that it was a chap who at the time was a mutual friend, although he went off me very rapidly afterwards, works in exactly these conditions. And he's one of the people convinced that his life is rubbish because of immigration. These things happen because we allow them to. And all of the people who are doing them are investing huge amounts of money. All the money they raise from charging you 150 quid for being sick, they will invest it in persuading you that immigration is the reason why you're working in such a ludicrous scenario. It's nuts. Dave's in High Wycombe. Dave, what do you think?
Hello, mate. Yeah, brilliant show, mate. Listen every day.
Bless you, Dave.
Yeah, I actually used to work for two companies. I'm not going to say their names, but
Good.
I basically broke my ankle, right? And they wanted to charge me £150 a day until I was better. Or I get my own driver. I have to get my own driver in. So instead of me paying £150 a day, I still had to go to work. I paid this fella £60 a day while he drove for me, so I didn't have to pay £150 a day. And on top of that, I wanted to go on holiday for 2 weeks, and I had to pay them £150 a day for 2 weeks while I was on holiday.
Shut up. That's 1,500 quid.
Yes, and that's what I had to pay every day while I was on holiday.
But you knew this when you signed up, would be one response, perhaps.
Yeah, you did, but, you know, you just...
Did you know it but not know it? You like a lot of small print. You sort of go along with it and you don't really stop to read, which, you know, obviously you should have paid more attention, but if someone had said to you, by the way, you'll have to pay...
figures at you.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
They throw figures at you straight away, and you see these figures and you think, oh, Jesus, that's nice, I could make some good money there.
Yeah.
And you don't even think about the small print. You don't look at that until you need to have time off or you do something. Like I say, I broke my ankle.
Well, that was my extreme example 10 minutes ago, and it was you. It was your life I was describing.
Absolutely, mate. Yeah, exactly that. And I had to pay this fella £60 a day, so he would come and drive for me, and I still had to go to work with a cast on my foot and everything.
And they've got you over a barrel because you've had to invest in the vehicle.
Yep, exactly. And on top of that, every 3 years they want you to change your vehicle and get a brand new spanking vehicle.
And do you get any help with that from them?
Do you help?
No, I kind of thought you were going to say that, but the bit. At least you've still got your sense of humour, Dave. Have you still got your teeth?
I have indeed.
Well, there you go. It's all good.
Now, anyway,
you've moved on. I'm glad, because the two bits I didn't understand, I now understand. So why were they charging you 60 quid? That's because you turned up with your van.
No, I had paid my mate 60 quid to drive for me.
But because the van was on the road, you didn't have to pay them 150 quid.
I didn't have to pay them £150 because my van was still on the road.
And the reason why you can't walk away is because you got to pay for your van at the end of every month out of the wages that you can't earn if you're not at work.
Exactly that, mate.
Geez, you'd struggle to come up with something as grim as this if you sat down for a week with an abacus and a bottle of bile, wouldn't you?
It's crazy, mate.
Well, I'm glad you're out of it. I feel for everyone that isn't. I don't know what light at the end of the tunnel looks like, and that makes me feel impotent. I hate it. James is in Bromley. James, what would you like to say?
I work for a different one of these companies. I won't mention them, but they're all exactly the same. It's the self-employment where they get you, really.
And do you not see it coming? This is the bit where I perhaps struggle a little bit, because Dave put it into perspective. They just throw at you what you might earn, what you could earn, what you do. That you don't actually sit down and realise, if I buy a van on HP, I have to do, whenever these people say jump, all I can do is say how high. And I will be in hock to them for 4 years.
Yeah, but I mean, you just want a job, don't you, most people?
Yeah, of course you do.
Right, better than no job, isn't it?
Any job is better than no job. And there you go. There in a nutshell, James. Explains why our unemployment figures are so low. Our unemployment is at a record low. Don't mention the fact that decent, hard-working men and women up and down Britain are essentially being held hostage by hire purchase agreements on their vehicles by companies who charge them for the privilege of being poorly. You know that I'm not on board. You know I'm not. And you know that part of me wants to be. But this is why Jeremy Corbyn is spooking people. It doesn't, of course, explain why he's still neck and neck in the polls with the Conservatives. One legal nightmare appears to have come to a happy end. I will introduce you shortly to a man who is caught in the middle of one that really does deserve the epithet, overused epithet, Kafkaesque. But we cross first to the High Court, where the alleged computer hacker Larry Love found out not long ago that he is not going to be extradited to the United States, where he could have faced 99 years in jail and where his family feared he might hurt himself. I think we've got Larry on the line now. Is that right?
Hello. Hi, James. How are you?
I'm very well indeed. How are you, more to the point?
I'm incredibly happy and relieved and thankful and grateful for all the support that I've had, and looking forward to not have to worry about being kidnapped and tortured for the rest of my life.
What were you feeling when you woke up this morning? I mean, hand on heart, which way did you think it was going to go?
It was very apprehensive because we sort of had a plan to be told in advance at the barristers' chambers, and then it was changed last minute to being told at the court, and I thought, is that because it's bad? So very nervous, wanted to sort of coordinate all the support we had outside the court and not look stupid for the cameras, which I have a habit of doing. But
welcome to the club. That's nice.
Yeah. We got there, and when the verdict came down, there was a very loud and audible expression of thankfulness, and the judge had to tell everyone to pipe down because it's a solemn court, but everyone is in a great mood, and it's been a very long journey.
How long? For people who haven't been following, when did this all start?
About 4.5 years. In October of 2013, I was first arrested by the National Crime Agency, and there ought to have just been a charge pressed here in the UK and a prosecution, which might have taken about 6 months, and I'd already be on the other side of it, even if I had been convicted and sent to prison. So we now have the opportunity to look forward to a UK prosecution, but compared to being brought through the ordeal of being prosecuted in America, it would be a walk in the park.
Well, I'm very glad to hear it. I wonder if that direct message that I sent you earlier played a part in your upbeat demeanour in court.
It did. I really appreciate that you wish me good luck.
Will you come in and talk us through it properly one day? We'll go through the whole saga.
I absolutely would love to, because there's a lot of issues that came up in this, to do with autism, mental health and international law, so I'd like to come in and just give a full rundown.
We'll do that, I promise you. Now you go off and celebrate with your family and your friends, who must be even more relieved perhaps than you are. 12:52 is the time. I think it's fair to say that there is not any immediate prospect of my studio guest Mohammed Al-Mustafa achieving similar happiness anytime soon. You find yourself in a frankly astonishing situation, because you have been effectively stateless for 31 years after leaving Palestine at the age of 5 after your brother was killed. But the Home Office in this country won't recognise that you're stateless. Is that right? Yeah. So tell me where you are now. What is your status in this country at this point in time, Mohammed?
I don't know. I don't have...
If you come a bit closer to the microphone. There we go.
Second, please.
That's brilliant.
Yeah. I don't have some feel in my side, because I live in UK for 7 years.
Yes.
And I don't have life. I don't have nothing, You're
not allowed to work.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to do.
Nothing. Okay. This is not life. Okay. I sleep in the street 3 years. Okay, and maybe more. Okay, and I don't have life. I can't give you explain, because I can't speak English it's very well, but feel I'm very sad,
What happened when you tried to go back to?
I wanted to go via Europea, okay, and Libya, and go back Gaza, because I don't have choice,
Yes. So what happened when you tried to go back to Gaza?
Police catch me. I tried before, and police catch me in Doha, and...
But why can't you go?
Sorry?
Why aren't you allowed to go back?
I got a lorry, and after that is going in a train like before.
Yes.
Like I come, okay, and I tried before, but I don't.
But you had no papers.
Yeah.
So then.
Before, yes. Before.
So this is. I mean, your friend Joe is here, who lives with you, and or rather, who looks after you. You've given him shelter.
Yeah, I'm a host through Refugees at Home. So he came to live with me when he was homeless. He's been with me for 18 months. Just to answer that question, he's tried to leave the country because they've said they won't give him statelessness or the right to work. But he's tried to leave twice, and they've stopped him leaving, saying you have to leave in the UK. He can't leave because he's got no paperwork to leave.
And we don't recognise Palestine as a state anyway.
Yeah, so ergo, if they gave him statelessness, it would be because they don't recognise Palestine as a state. But also, Palestine doesn't give people from Gaza at the age that he left, they don't give paperwork. So he's never had documentation.
And the refusal letter, essentially, I mean, Mohammed, you failed to answer questions about the national anthem and other elements of knowledge of a country you left when you were 5. You were supposed to know the national anthem, you're supposed to know... So what do they think you are? Do they think you're lying when you say that you're from Palestine?
Yeah, Home Office, you want to catch something from me, you know, just for ask like stupid question, how you come in here? I say I come in a train. Okay? Yes. And lorry, I come in lorry, and he asked me, you tell me you come in a train, how you come in lorry? I say because I got a train. That was I come in lorry, and that way I come in a train. Okay.
Yeah, there's just a confusion at the Home Office because he said first one time I'm coming on a lorry, and another time he came on a train. But the thing is, the lorry got on the train, so they're always trying to catch him out with answers.
The idea also that you, and this is a quote from the refusal letter with a mistake in it that is in the original. The Home Office has conducted research into what food common around the Gaza Strip. You failed to name any. So this was essentially asking you to remember what you used to eat when you were 4.
No, what the national dish is.
Right.
And he hasn't lived there since he was 5. He took a wild guess at it, but obviously somebody at the Home Office, some recent graduate, Googles national dish of Palestine, and they think they know better than him.
But what do they want to happen, though?
And ask me about some question.
Yes.
Like, can you draw a flag?
Draw the flag.
I draw, okay? But I'm wrong for one color. And tell me, I tell him, okay, I want to make again. After 5 minutes, give me, but I'm mistake, okay? But
he was so nervous, he couldn't draw the flag, even though he'd drawn it for them in another interview correctly.
Doesn't count.
Yeah.
You can't have it retrospective.
No.
Joe, what does success
he only
look like?
got 3 answers wrong in that question. So there's a thing that the UNHCR and the UK Home Office policy is probability, and that should be 51%. But he actually only got 3 questions wrong out of about 70. So we think they're just saying no, as long as they can say no, until basically they feel they're backed into a corner of the Home Office.
Because that's the atmosphere in the Home Office at the moment.
What they'll be doing now, they've delayed his decision, the appeal decision, twice already. So we were supposed to hear on Tuesday. Now they're saying February 13th. We think it's a good sign. We think what they're probably doing is talking to their legal department, saying, do we have any chance of winning at judicial review? They'll just keep saying no until they have to say yes.
And to be clear, if Mohammed is rendered stateless, if he becomes officially stateless, the first thing he can do is go out and get a job and find himself somewhere to live that doesn't rely upon your kindness and charity.
Why should the Home Office make him rely on the kindness of strangers, to point Tennessee Williams?
The line that I have to tell you that stopped me in my tracks, and I like to think I've been around the block a few times. A man who has been stateless for 31 years has been denied protection in the UK after the Home Office refused to accept that he was originally from Palestine, despite advising him to return to Palestine on 2 separate occasions. What do you say when you're presented with that kind of Kafkaesque scenario? So the next hearing is on February the...
Well, no, that's not a hearing. That's like when you submit your appeal. So it's just an internal appeal. We'll hear. They're supposed to make a decision by February 13th now, having delayed it twice already.
Do you have contact with any family, Mohammed? Do you still keep it nothing at all? You're entirely on your own in this world.
I come in here before 7 years. I want to go Canada because I want to find my uncle.
Who's in Canada, but you can't go to Canada because you don't have any status.
That's an uncle he's never met that he just knows his father used to write to. But along the journey out of Gaza, he lost both his father and his mother, so he actually knows very little about his family background or relatives. We're trying to find the uncle through Freedom of Information Act. If we can find his uncle, who says he's Palestinian, that will prove that Mohammed is Palestinian. We're doing DNA tests to try and prove he's Palestinian. We're doing everything we can, but I think what the world doesn't appreciate is there are people in this world who have no paperwork and never have.
Well, we do know now.
Yeah.
In our own small way. Thank you.
Yeah.
Naomi, thank you very much. Joe, thank you. Keep in touch, won't you?
We will. We'll let you know the good news.
Good news, fingers crossed. Well, the Lowry love hopefully sets a precedent. It's just coming up to 1 o'clock. That's it from me for another day. We'll do it all again tomorrow morning for On Tap.